Hi everyone, this is Mr. Hanson. Today I'm going to talk about the effect of attachment on children's development. Attachment can be defined as an emotional bond between two or more people, and is also the term used to describe the bond or relationship between offspring or children and their parents or caretakers. And it has an emotional aspect, but it also has an behavioral aspect. So in children, some attachment behavior you can see is separation anxiety, that they get very distressed when the mother or caretaker is away. There is safe haven, that in a new environment, a strange environment, they use the mother or the caretaker as a safe area to explore a new area. There's also strange anxiety, this distrust or being a little bit distressed for people who are not their parents or they're not familiar with. So there are a few of those behaviors associated with bonding behavior and attachment. And this attachment usually develops over time through interaction with the parent, and in the first few months of life. And you can find attachment behavior in many different species. One of those are goslings, and there's a famous study by the ethologist Conrad Lorenz, who was present when the goslings hatched. He had separated those eggs from the goose mother. And when they hatched, they imprinted him as their mother figure and formed a kind of a bond with him. And they followed him around everywhere. But you can also find attachment behavior in our closer relatives, the monkeys. And why do you do that then? Because there seems to be an evolutionary origin, it's an instinct that children have a need to bond. They have an instinct to drive to bond and attach to caregivers and parents, in the same way as parents or caregivers also have an instinct to bond with their children or offspring. And this is because there are survival benefits for that, because the children might not survive into adulthood unless they get proper care and guidance and help. So there is a very infamous study by Harlow that you most likely have heard about. And before I just outline that study, I want you to be aware of that when the study was conducted, they had very little knowledge on how attachment affected your social and cognitive development. When Harlow did this study, there are many variations, and in one of those variations, it's a very unethical study, as you might know. He separated baby macaque monkeys from the mothers and raised them in isolation in cages. And in those cages there were so-called surrogate mothers. There was structures that resembled a mother of a macaque monkey. And there was a wild mother that also had a milk bottle or attached to it. And there was a cloth mother, kind of a soft toy that was soft, but no food related to it. And what Harlow found was that the children, so the macaque babies, spent more time with the cloth mother. They wanted to be closer. This is, by the way, an attachment behavior, proximity. and they only went to the wild mother to get milk or food. So with that, he wanted to demonstrate that closeness, like touch, being close, is very important. It's a need of children. This was not always accepted by everyone, because due to culture reasons in the old times. But what he also found, which might be more unethical, is that, but also an important finding, was that those monkeys that were raised in isolation developed difficulties relating to others, developed like stress symptoms, and very much like children who have been neglected, and they had a major impact on the life of those monkeys after they were released from the cages. So this kind of relates well to a very known researcher in the field of attachment, and his name is Bowlby. And Bowlby developed, around the same time as Harlow, he developed a theory called attachment theory, where he showed that the relationship with your parents will affect your social skills and also the view of yourself, your self-esteem, and it will affect your well-being. And if you don't have the opportunity for a close bond to one significant other in your early childhood, it might scar you, it might affect you for the rest of your life. This theory, attachment theory, has been slightly revised, showing that there is still a hope, even though you have had difficulty relating to someone in early childhood. But I think all evidence that's out there show that it does have a major impact on your psychology. And a student of Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, she developed a test to measure the quality of attachment between caregivers and children. And it's called the strange situation. And it's basically a child being with her caregiver or mother in a room, and then a stranger comes into the room and the mother later leaves the room. And in that test, the researchers are looking at, or the psychologists are looking at, how the child interacts with the stranger, and also the separation anxiety shows when the mother returns. And it is normal for a child, due to attachment, to be distressed, but this distress reaction can vary depending on the attachment. And from that, Ainsworth identified two major attachment styles: secure and insecure attachment. And but the insecure attachment could also be divided into two, which are avoidant and ambivalent. And an avoidant attachment style is when the mother and the child interacts very little, and when the mother leaves the room or returns, there's very little interaction. Whereas an ambivalent, it's much more conflict ridden, both from the parent side and the child side, and it's more confrontational and more emotional. It's a bit like love-hate interactions. And what can be said is that, to some extent, call it these attachments, I think, is linked to personality to an extent. It's genetic, but it can also be argued that it's linked to the children's and parents' interactions. And this quality can also be affected by socioeconomic factors and culture factors. So, for example, if you are from a family with lower socioeconomic status, due to the stressors that come from lower socioeconomic status, that can create a risk for the quality of the relationship with the child and the parent. Of course, you can find poor relationships between parents and children in all socioeconomic groups, as well as good relationships. So, but there are of course cultural effects, and one famous study by Tronek et al. In 1987 investigated how culture could affect attachment, and they were anthropologists, so they went to Central Africa and lived with the Efé, which is an indigenous people in Central Africa, and they observed how they nurtured babies, and they found that unlike many Western societies, the children spend much less time with the biological mothers, and the children were breastfed or nursed by all the women in the tribe. And although you could see that the child still had a very close bond, a fairly close bond to their biological mother, because they did actually meet them, they might also have developed a closer bond to the rest of the tribe. So instead of this nuclear family, there was more of a nuclear group. And it could be argued that attachment to your biological mother, or attachment to other people of the group, will affect values of collectivism. So there are both social and cultural influences on the quality of attachment. But it must also be said that it can have an impact in your adulthood. And another famous study by Hazen and Shaver, which is a survey study, found that your romantic relationships in adulthood correlated fairly well, with your relationships with your parents in early childhood. So if you had a secure relationship with your parents in childhood, you were more likely to have a secure romantic relationship. If you have more insecure relationships with your parents in childhood, you were more likely to have more insecure relationships. So this, although it's a correlation, this indicates that it does have an effect on your social development. And another study by Bartley et al. In 2007 looked at civil servants in UK, and they found that also a survey study, longitudinal survey study, found that civil servants who, through self-report, said that they had a more closer relationship and bond with their parents in childhood, also had higher advancement and in government service compared to others, and it kind of makes sense that if you have had more of a difficult childhood, there might be a lot of distress and affect mental health, which also can affect how your success in the work life. So it does have an effect, and one of the major things that I I personally take in from this is that the best investment you can do for your children, the best thing you can do with children is actually to love them and spend time with them. Okay, this summed up the effect of attachment on development. I hope it has enlightened you slightly. Thank you and bye.